Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Technical Tim here, and I want to thank everyone so much who's been liking all my videos and subscribing to the channel. And I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up or subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm just going to do a quick final thoughts video. Gugabe and I could not do a podcast this week because he's in Australia, I'm in Chicago. Sometimes our schedules just don't match up because of the time difference, but neither of us I don't think have really a lot of plays on this card anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I'm just going to do a quick final thoughts video and a few house cleaning items. I wanted to mention, one, we have a 2-week break after this Jacare and Jan card, and I'm going to just kind of get ahead, and so I'll still be doing videos and previewing, fights coming up in the last 3 events of the year. And what else? Oh, I did have a play just as a parlay piece. I was on Vanderford in Bellator, so that hit, so that was pretty cool. I wish Bellator stopped doing that tape delay. It's kind of annoying. Like, why are you paying for DAZN if they're going to, tape delay it? I don't know. It kind of defeats the purpose of a streaming service, but whatever. And then, what else was I going to say? I feel like I had something else to say. I think that's pretty much it. I think that's everything. So yeah, I'm just going to go through each card. I'm not going to go too in detail on this because I don't have a ton of plays or anything, and I don't want to waste your time if I don't have plays and I don't have anything really great to add. Cortez and Melo, I tend to think Cortez should win this just because at least she'll be attempting takedowns, and she landed 4 takedowns in her Contender Series fight, and I just feel like if she attempts another 7 to 9 takedowns like she did in that, I'm sure she'll find some top position here. So I tend to lean her. No action. Don't really care, though. Lipski. Oh, the odds just came out. Lipski's minus 320 against Isabella de Padua, or whatever the fuck her name is. And she was originally going to be fighting Macedo. That fight was a mess. And then this fight looks like a mess. I haven't looked at Isabella yet, so I have no comment on this fight. De Andrade and Barao. I agree with the line. I do think Barao can compete early, and he tends to land strikes and land at a decent clip, but he just doesn't. The optics don't look good, and he just gasses. And whenever he gasses, he just eats a lot of shots, even if he's landing some of his own. And the optics just look bad, and he kind of just gets battered and gasses. So I tend to think De Andrade, it's fine with him as a favorite, but I'm not going to play it either. And then Randy Brown and Warlley Alves, I have no action here. I'm not going to play the fight, but I do think Brown's going to win. I tend to think his overall, his height, his reach, and he has the better striking numbers. Like, he lands more strikes than Alves, and he gets hit less. And I tend to think Alves looked bad against James Krause, and James Krause is 6'2", a little longer, and Brown's even longer than Krause was. And I feel like Krause is just giving Alves a ton of issues with his length and straight punches, and Randy Brown, I feel like, could do that. So I tend to think Brown should win, and I feel like he could even clinch up Alves, similar to what Brown did to Barberena at times, and Krause was clinching up Alves too and tiring him out, and I just like Brown's overall athleticism, length, striking numbers, and I like his cardio a lot more, and I think he could slow Alves down and have success late. The only concern is the leg kicks, and this is a striking fight, so they tend to be high variance, and Brown is the visiting fighter here, and it's in Alves' home country, so that's kind of why I'm hesitant, and I'm just going to pass, but I do think Brown's going to win that matchup. Green and Trinaldo, I kind of feel the same way. Green's a dog just like Brown, and I tend to think Green should win this, and it's kind of similar to the Alves fight, where Green just has better striking numbers, he's longer, and he lands at a higher clip. And I know he loses a lot of close decisions, but he's losing a lot of close decisions against A, good fighters, and B, fighters who keep up a high striking volume, and Trinaldo doesn't. So I feel like this fight is just a little different. And before he's had that skid, before his Edson Barboza fight, he was on a long streak beating guys and doubling them up in volume. And I tend to think Green's just going to be a little busier, but it is still Trinaldo's home country, and Trinaldo probably hits a little harder, so I think it could make it interesting, but I tend to think Green will win a decision here. No action on it, but I tend to think he should win, and I don't think a play on Brown or Green at dog odds, I don't think it's a bad idea. Ramos and Garagori, I tend to think Ramos will probably just out-grapple him, and so I'm fine with him being a pretty decent favorite here. But I do think Garagori can compete on the feet. I actually think he can keep it competitive, and Ramos doesn't always... He's just not busy enough on the feet and doesn't land at a high rate, so I could see that fight being pretty competitive on the feet, but Ramos does have a ground advantage, so it's just kind of whatever. No interest in playing it. Sergio Moraes and James Krause. I tend to think I'm fine with Krause being a bit of a favorite. He puts up more volume. And Moraes, I mean, if you keep it striking, Moraes just doesn't land enough. So I'm totally fine with Krause being the favorite. I think the line's right. No interest in playing it. Perez and Turman, this fight's a fucking mess. I have no interest in playing it. I could see either guy randomly falling into a good grappling position. I don't know. I just feel like this is just kind of one of those opportunistic fights, like who takes advantage of a position. It's hard to predict. Don't really have any interest in playing this either. So I'm kind of flying through these first ones because I have more to say about the last 4 fights. And a lot of the early ones, they're just kind of bleh. And I feel like this card, Brazilian cards, like cards in Brazil with a lot of these Brazilian fighters tend to be high variance because there's so much finishing upside. And it's because of the Brazilian fighting style where they go for the finish, kind of like offensive minded on the feet, and they're very submission over position at times on the ground. So it just makes the fights a little harder to predict because just crazy shit can happen. So I don't always like playing a lot of action on these cards. Muniz and Arroyo. So I tweeted last night that I had a little bit of a lean. I decided not to play it because Arroyo may have improved a little bit, maybe just his get-ups and things. But I think Muniz is going to sub Arroyo. And I'm going to eye the submission line. It's currently plus 200 to plus 220. Honestly, that I probably think that might be value for Muniz. I think he's going to sub him. I don't know if I'm going to have action here, though, because, I don't know, the fight... I've been impressed with Muniz's grappling. Like, when I looked into him, he has good sweeps. He's super opportunistic. He's actually a legitimate black belt. I was looking at some of his stuff online. I was looking at BJJ Heroes and things like that to kind of get a sense of his ability. And he's a legit black belt. He's good. And he has a judo base. His takedowns aren't amazing, but they're tricky. And he has variety, and he constantly goes for them. So I tend to think he'll probably get some takedowns. And Arroyo throws a lot of kicks and just finds himself on his back a lot. And I feel like Muniz will probably pass his guard pretty easily. And Arroyo got subbed in LFA in 2017 against probably the best grappler he had gone against, and he just got his guard passed too easy, man. I just feel like it's at some point he's going to be on his back and there's going to be danger, and I tend to think Muniz is just going to sub him. Yeah, it was against Herdem. Yeah, he got subbed in the first round. And I just didn't... It's not even the sub that bothers me. It's how easily he was getting passed. And Muniz is always advancing. And I just feel like if he gets on top, he's going to get advances and probably sub him. And in the striking, I favor Arroyo in the striking, but he's super kick heavy. And Muniz isn't bad at kind of pushing you up against the cage with hands and then kind of working in his takedowns from there. And he's just kind of a pest. And I don't think I'm going to play it. It's kind of like that Brown and Green fight. Like my leans are Brown, Green, and Muniz, but I don't feel strongly enough to play them. But I tend to think I favor all three of those guys. And I do think that subline probably holds some value. I could easily see this being like a Yaya Luke Sanders thing where once they actually tie up, the sub could come really quick. So yeah, that's kind of my read on that one, but I don't think I'm going to be playing anything. Oliveira and Gordon, I would not play Oliveira at his current line. I do think Oliveira is going to win, but Gordon actually has, like, he's actually a pretty good grappler, and everything I've seen on him, it looks like, but Oliveira's a step up as far as defending submissions against. But everything I've seen of Gordon, he has just good, basic, stifling submission defense, and I could see him pulling a Paul Felder and just kind of stuffing submissions and maybe having success in other areas of the fight. So I don't think Oliveira is a good parlay leg in his minus 400 range. I tend to think he is going to win, but the over 1.5 is minus 103. I could see this fight playing out for a while because I don't know if Gordon's just going to be insta-tapped. But I'm not going to fuck with this fight. I tend to think Oliveira is going to win, but I would not be surprised if Gordon's able to just stifle things and keep up his high output like he always does and give Oliveira a competitive fight. Shogun and Craig's the only play that I have. I have him parlayed up with Vanderford, and I also just played him straight around his minus 180 to 230 range. He's currently minus 265. And I just don't see where Craig has to get a finish or he's not going to win. Like, Craig pretty much has never won a round in the UFC. And the way I see it is Shogun is a much better striker, lands at a way higher rate. He's the better positional cage clincher. He uses better head position. Both of their cardio isn't great, but I feel like Shogun's way more dangerous, and Craig just kind of, when he gets tired, starts shooting for half-assed double legs and falling to his back. I feel like Shogun can also land some pretty ruthless hammer fists from top position because Craig's super vulnerable to ground and pound. And Shogun's a legit grappler, and I don't think Craig's just going to be able to triangle choke him. So I feel like Shogun has him checkmated from a round-winning perspective. And then I think as far as the other paths to victory for Craig, is I don't think he can win a decision here. Like, weird shit would have to happen for him to win a decision. This is Paul Craig we're talking about, so nothing is really, like, out of the realm of possibilities with him. But when you really look at some of the wins he's pulled out of that he's kind of just pulled out of nowhere, he's subbed just some green. The Magomed Ankalaev one is the true holy shit moment because Ankalaev's legit. And that submission, I think, was kind of attributed to maybe Ankalaev not minding his P's and Q's late in the fight and just getting kind of caught and tapping way too quickly. But other than that, all of Craig's wins are explainable. Like, that Kennedy guy is super green, and I guarantee you Kennedy would get tapped in most just American jiu-jitsu rooms where that wouldn't happen with Shogun. Like, Shogun's like an actual seasoned grappler, and I just don't think he's going to get triangled. Shogun's been tapped twice, and one was against Forrest Griffin, who just put a pace on him, and that's not what Craig's going to do. And then his other one was against Chael Sonnen, which is just kind of like a wrestling transition guillotine. And I don't think like a triangle is really the same. So it really doesn't even worry me that much, that guillotine. And yeah, I just feel like Shogun's seasoned enough to stop the submissions. And even though Craig has pulled out random wins, I think they're mostly, except against Magomed Ankalaev, they're mostly against not very good competition. And then as far as a KO path for Craig, he's knocked out one person ever, and then he club and subbed Vinicius Morea, and Vinicius has literally the worst chin I've maybe ever seen. Like, if you just kind of land on him, he just goes down. He just isn't a very durable guy, and I know Shogun's been cracked lately, but I mean, he had kind of a back-and-forth brawl with Volante and was fine. He got a little hurt against Tyson Pedro, but nothing crazy. And it's not like Paul Craig's a heavy hitter. And Paul Craig doesn't even land at a high rate. And he doesn't even throw that many head strikes. He throws a lot of kicks. So I just think Shogun's going to fuck him up. And I think Craig's chin is way worse than Shogun's chin, personally. So I think Shogun's totally fine even for a parlay leg, and I honestly even think his money line is. I favor him -4 to 500 to win. I would just be so shocked. Craig has to win. I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I get it could happen. I just think it's finish or bust, and I don't think it's a high percentage. I just don't think it's very high. Jan and Souza, the last fight on the card. I'm fine with Jan being the favorite. Jacare just kind of seems to get a little lethargic and slow down after a round, and he doesn't wrestle like he used to. I saw on Twitter, someone tweeted this, I forget who tweeted this out, but I think Jacare he's landed more than one takedown, like once in just a few years, so it's not like he's relentlessly going for takedowns anymore, so unless if he dominates in grappling early, I tend to think this will be a striking fight, where Jan throws a little bit more and is maybe just a little better, but at the same time, Jan doesn't push a super heavy pace like Jack Hermanson, so I could see Jacare not tiring out and having success of his own. So I'm fine with Jan being a slight favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacare won, but I'm fine with the line. Don't want to mess with it. Don't see a ton of potential as far as the line being off or anything. So that's kind of like my main summary of this card is the 3 fights I'm not playing, but I tend to lean these guys as Brown, Green, and Andre Muniz, but I'm not playing any of those, but I tend to think those guys will win. I'll eye Muniz's subline, but I probably want to end up playing it. And then I think Shogun is fine for a parlay leg, and I think he's going to batter Craig, personally. But other than that, I don't know, it's a sloppy card, and there's a lot of well-established fighters on here, so the odds aren't off or anything for the most part. So I've actually, because of this, like I didn't like this card too much. I've been researching, kind of going into future cards and things like that, so I'll have some plays coming up. And since we have a couple weeks off, if you have any videos you want made on certain topics, just comment below, and I'll definitely do that. So thank you guys. Bye.